Welcome to the Libertarian Atheist Group podcast. Today is November 19th, 2016, and we are discussing part one of the Rubin Report featuring Dr. Bill Warner. It is Political Islam. Today we have with us Jeremy, Heather, Alex, Adam, and Betsy. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, Heather.
Good to be here.
Nice to be anywhere.
Right?
That's sad.
Aw. No, we're all happy to be somewhere anytime, right?
That's right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Other than in church.
Yes, I have to agree with you there. So every time I have to go to church, I always make a joke that I'm going to start on fire.
Well, hang on. Is this a funeral? Because there's always food at funerals. So.
Well, speaking of funerals, if I go to one and I look in the box and it's not me, I'm having a good day.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
I recently read this joke where this guy said that it would be amazing to be one of the Fantastic Four. Can you imagine having 3 friends?
Very good. Very good.
Yep, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay, so as we discussed here, we're going to jump ahead to certain points in the video. We're going to start off with about 10 minutes in and rolling.
Our ability to think. Well, when you can no longer think as a nation, what do we have left? Well, it's a short step to tyranny.
All right, well, let's make this about ourselves then and talk a little bit about the kafirs. So basically, according to Islam, the kafirs, it's basically any non-believer, correct?
Yes. Now, this has some subtleties to it, but for instance, when I was in a debate with a Muslim, I says, let me be very clear. I do not believe Muhammad was the prophet of Allah, and I don't believe,
Now,
that
I want to go ahead and say I think I wrote my timestamp down incorrectly because I was kind of in a rush here, but it was probably a few seconds prior to 10 minutes. They were commenting on political correctness and how, and it's kind of a popular meme, if you will, now that political correctness is a left-wing phenomena, and it's really not. It's the dominant political party is who makes the what determines what is politically correct, really. For example, during the Bush administration, jingoistic, more kind of right-wing speech was seen as politically correct, as opposed to now after 8 years of Obama and kind of more progressive politics.
Sorry.
Your bird has to weigh in.
Yes.
I know.
The bird was offended.
I
That's what he said.
She's not politically correct. I promise you, she screams whenever she damn well pleases.
Sounds like an SJW to me.
Yes,
Like
she
any
is.
like any woman I would know, love, or marry.
She'll
You
be
just
going
get
back to
sadder
the
and sadder, dude.
Well, I come from a family where every New Year's Eve we would get together and watch our hopes drop.
Aw.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
But I mean,
All right, back to-
more to the topic. I mean, okay, so political correctness is the whole SJW culture now. But I mean, let's think about 10 years ago. I mean, especially in the United States. I mean,
Right.
sorry, Alex, you're outnumbered, so we don't, But anyway, so.
politically correct is remaining.
But I mean, think about what was politically correct during the Bush era. It was a completely different tone than what's politically correct now.
I can't even think of anything that was like, I don't think political correctness was talked about as much, was it? Back then? I mean, you still couldn't use racial slurs or, I don't know. What's an example of something in the Bush era that was politically correct or incorrect?
You support the troops, goddammit. If you don't support...
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
That was a big one.
Well, but that's always been the case. I remember exactly where I was.
Hold on, I'm going to put her away.
Be careful with that strychnine. I remember, wait until Wait until Betsy gets back. She might
Yep, no
she
problem.
might relate to this.
Miss
Sorry.
out on your amazing insights.
Who, me?
No, it's not that amazing age group. That's
It's true.
generational difference.
You could start a YouTube channel and call it The Amazing Ageist.
Yes.
That was a terrible joke.
That was a terrible joke.
It was.
Yeah.
Now I can't get TJ's face out of my head. Fuck.
No, I don't know if people remember where they were. You know, like the Kennedy moment, you know, or the 9/11 moment, where they were when they first heard the term political correctness or politically correct. But I do remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Because I had never heard it before. Bush the first
Mm-hmm.
had just been elected and took office, so that would have been 80, 89 or 90. Maybe it was in his second term. I'm sorry, in his second year
Okay.
of office. And some gal from the University of Colorado was attending school then, asked me if I'd ever heard the term. So this
Really?
was 90. I'm thinking it was 90 or 91. I'd never heard of it. She tried to explain to me what it was, and maybe I didn't believe it, or I didn't understand it, because I was raised in the most politically incorrect generation that there was.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched this thing called political correctness develop over the decades and get worse and worse. So the one thing that I'll say about Trump is that he is single-handedly destroying political correctness, and that's the one advantage. Well, there's a couple others.
Yeah.
He's entertaining to the point of self-parody, but he is destroying political correctness, and this should have happened a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, I can remember when there wasn't political correctness, and I can remember when there, was then. And I can,
Right.
I can see, why it began as a thing. It was understandable, but then it, like a lot of good ideas, it's gone bad. It's like
Right.
good.
It's gone too far.
Yeah, it's a good
just gone
intention.
too far.
Good intention's gone bad.
Exactly.
I don't think though I don't think it's always okay. So, just from reading I've done on some various academic sources, is it's not always correct, I guess, to say that political correctness is just left-wing rhetoric. It's whatever is politically acceptable in the given climate, and considering that basically probably from the late '60s and up until today. Left-wing rhetoric is becoming more status quo and more mainstream increasingly over time. It seems that way in Western society for political correctness to have a leftist bent. In Nazi Germany, political correctness probably would have been very right-wing.
But the Nazis were left.
I mean,
Or at least left-leaning centrists at best.
Well, they were all about central planning and everything. They didn't advocate for free markets, and they wanted to redistribute wealth. Yes, but I guess probably I'm talking leftist more as in terms of social issues rather than economic. And
I think it's really a part of the culture, whether it's left or right, because now. I mean, you look at the word gay, right? I can't remember this because I was too young at the time, but the word gay meant happy.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And then
That was
sometime,
like, the 1600s?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
not really.
Right. Yeah, give or take
I had a good
dark
friend
era.
in third grade named Gay. People used to name their daughters Gay.
Yeah,
Yes.
they did. Mm-hmm.
my parents,
Yes.
well, I only have one parent left alive, and she's 75. No, 70. Is that?
Yeah.
My mom's 75. Okay. So yeah, when in her childhood, gay would have been not
Happy.
a pejorative. It would have been a good word. And it's like, oh, you look gay today. Why, thank you. Yes, I do feel happy.
Right.
Yeah. It completely has changed meanings.
Right. Completely. When you hear it on TV, right? When you hear the original definition on TV, it sounds strange.
It does.
And then they co-opted the rainbow, which
That's right.
which now when you look at a rainbow,
It
what
used
do
to
you
mean.
think?
I used to think the Muppets.
Okay, the Muppets. I
In
thought
the
the
80s, that
Apple,
was the
the old
Muppets.
Apple logo
Yeah.
was rainbow. Then
Wizard of Oz.
and now
I still can't get over them co-opting the rainbow.
It's terrible.
I know one of.
I mean, let them have the word gay. Nobody used that anyway. That's fine. I mean, that was a lame word anyway, so it fits.
Right.
But the
Careful,
rainbow
lame
is
is
so
ableist.
nice.
I think it was one of those.
What
I
was
think
that?
it was one of those things where they
Lame
just.
is ableist.
Oh, no.
I think the rainbow was just a
Cold
way
cop.
to represent diversity for them, and it was something that they could use as a secret symbol. That was kind of how it started, like
Yeah,
because
I-
gay people had to hide, so of course when they'd go somewhere, they knew they were safe if they saw like the
Nice
rainbow
rainbow.
or a
Right, but
lambda.
how many colors
Now
in the
the same
rainbow
people.
actually represent people?
Well,
I mean, there are no green people.
There
Nah,
are those.
it represents different, I think, gender identities for people now. So back then it was just
No,
a
like-
symbol they used. So
We understand why they co-opted the rainbow, and we understand the rationale behind it. We just don't. We're just not happy with it. You can't have the rainbow, goddammit.
Right, but I guess my point is
Cultural.
it becomes cultural, becomes
Yeah.
regardless of your political persuasion, you accept, or maybe not accept, but you abide by these ground rules of
look at Islam.
PCism.
I mean, you
Yeah.
cannot draw a picture of Allah. I mean, to us, that's just stupid and ridiculous. But if we
Yes.
want to survive in their culture, we damn well better not do it. You
Yeah.
know, it's one of those things where there's going to be a consequence.
definitely.
You can't draw a picture of
Okay,
Muhammad
step-
just to be
That's
nitpicky.
right, not Allah.
mean,
Thank you.
you
I
really-
don't even know what I'm enough about this.
Arguably, you literally can't draw a picture of Allah because I don't believe he's described in the Quran. So, I don't know how you would accurately draw God.
We just make it up.
Yeah.
No, you're right, Muhammad.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, so that's a politically incorrect, but not like we can draw pictures. Christians can draw pictures of Jesus, so it's not this. It doesn't transfer
And
across
that's-
out of that culture.
And I think that speaks to my point is, okay, so it's very politically correct to draw the prophet of Islam, to draw the prophet of Christianity, that's fine. You find different, standards of political correctness in different cultures.
Right.
Our culture happens
Yes.
to be the progressive leftists is the standard of political correctness as it is today.
Yep. And it'll be interesting to see how big of a dent Trump makes in that. As he offends people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he's going to get him to back down on stuff, though. They're just going to dig in more and more.
I
the
mean,
people that demand it.
I think the tone...
Oh yeah, sure, but the fact that they will double down will be their undoing. I mean, doubling down on your losing strategy is not a winning strategy.
That's right.
And I think the tone can change. That's why I brought up Bush earlier, because, I mean, the tone back then of what was, acceptable, politically correct speech is different now than
Right.
now.
I mean,
Nationalism...
your military example was a good one because
Yeah.
people aren't just so gung-ho now about just assuming the U.S. is going to go in and destroy whatever threat is made to anybody in the world. I mean, that's now being questioned.
Well, yeah, now it's okay to question going to war. Back, 10 years ago, questioning going to war is
That's
like, well,
right.
you are anti-American if you don't want to go to
That's
war
right.
with the Middle East.
So those things change, but
I'm just not sure about that. I mean, you had a big anti-war movement under George W. Bush, and the same folks who were on the front page every other day with the anti-war protests suddenly disappeared when Obama took office. And it was just as much war under Obama, if not more, than under George W. So where were they? The one thing you can say about the 60s radicals, they protested Johnson and Nixon equally. They hated both of them, Republican and Democrat. They didn't pick sides. So I don't know what happened to the anti-war group under Obama. They've been you never hear from them.
right.
But if Trump starts a war, I guarantee you they'll be out in droves.
Certainly. And
So, I mean, my comments to what Jeremy said is basically that, first of all, we need to recognize where political correctness comes from, and political correctness comes from Mao. It's straight from the Maoist handbook. Now,
okay.
Granted, both sides can resort to, thought policing and speech policing, basically, but I would argue that it is more of a left-wing thing, because, like you said, left-right not necessarily in terms of economics, but left-right in terms of social issues.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as left-right in terms of social issues. Left-right is about economics. In terms of social issues, you can be libertarian or authoritarian, not left-right socially. And since the difference essentially between left-right economically is right means trade and left means redistribution, right-wingers are more likely to support an open, free marketplace of ideas. So they're much less likely to engage in political correctness. I mean, because what it essentially is, and this is something that George Carlin used to say, that we think in language, therefore our thoughts and ideas can only be as good as the quality of our language. And when you control language, you basically control thought, which is essentially the game that the left is in.
That's another thing Orwell touched on in 1984, by the way, but yeah.
Yeah. And that is, I would argue, something that the right is much less likely to engage in. I mean, in the Bush era, I did not hear of people going after people's jobs because they said they don't support the troops or because they expressed concerns about the war, skepticism.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
There's a higher cost that people pay now for, I mean, their lives can be destroyed if they say something offensive. You're right on that, Alex.
Well, I mean, there were instances of kind of sporadic violence, but I mean, those, those could be just, freak incidents, really. I mean,
right, just people that.
I mean, my point is that, right, that you have it's kind of like the comparison between Christianity and Islam. Sure, or Buddhist, right? You have Buddhist suicide bombers, right? Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't say that suicide bombing is and always has been a problem equally distributed among the religions. Right. So that, in the same way, I'd say, yeah, okay, there are a couple of right-wingers that take themselves too seriously and believe that they have the right answer and they want to take people's freedom of speech away. Sure, but and currently it's a real thing. Recently I had a fight on Facebook with someone I usually agree with, but they said that burning the flag should be a punishable offense. It should be treason. So I recognize that there are people who want their own sort of version of political correctness, but I do not think that it's an evenly distributed thing across the political spectrum.
So you'd chalk up more of the, or at least what's perceived as a conservative right-wing political correctness is just simple thought policing, basically. I guess is where you draw the distinction.
Not across the political spectrum, but wouldn't you agree that in terms of America now, that it is equal just across the cultural spectrum? That everybody has adopted this PC crap, whether you're on the left or on the right. Look at corporations in America. They send their employees now to workshops that tell them how to be culturally sensitive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are corporations owned. I would say at least half are owned by conservatives or people that would line up as Republicans.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but they do that because they want to appease the left.
Yeah,
because
I think
they need to sort of speak to the marketplace, not of ideas, of people.
But that's what I mean by the culture has accepted it. You Alex, you brought up a quote by Carlin. It made me think of Lenny Bruce, who said it's not the use of words, but the suppression of words that gives those words the power, the violence, the viciousness. So if you stop using the words, they become more powerful. This is why when you hear the full N word now, it's worse than it used to be because you don't hear it. But yet black folks can use that word, and they can use it as much as they want, and nobody calls them out for it.
Mm-hmm. Some black people do. I've heard like Chris Rock, for instance, has talked about that.
Yeah.
You know, and the difference between, you know, being a black person and being ghetto. You know, I've heard him make those distinctions. You know, and as far as that political correctness
Like a
stuff
civil
goes,
war going on right now in black people. On the one side there's black people, and on the other side there's niggas. And the niggas got to go.
Yep. That was pretty much it right there. Yep. So, but yeah, and I understand, like, you know, that whole idea that companies will do that kind of thing to appease the left. And as long as they're a privately owned company, you don't have an issue with it. What, you know, I see people want to push back on that as employees too, like when their, you know, company forces them to do those kind of things. And it's like, well, if it's a private company, then you're stuck with it. You know, if it's a government-owned one, then you could definitely do something different about that. But
it's also kind of reminding me of, well, Heather and I, and I'm assuming maybe Alex, I don't know, that'd be about the only ones that would know of the show Aqua Teen Hunger Force. There was a great episode talking about standards and practices, which basically was...
I used to watch stuff when I was like really young, and I remember I liked the cool costumes, but and the cars and whatnot, but I don't remember anything really.
Well, no, I mean,
I've never heard of it.
it's a younger.
I'd have to find the name.
Yeah, but you're like 120 or something.
That's right.
I'd have to find the episode, but it was.
Let me go find my teeth and put them in. Hold on.
I'd have to find the episode. I can't remember the name of the episode off the top of my head, but it was actually a pretty, you know, scathing piece of satire about standards and practices, and it was basically the writers of the show complaining about how they have to, you know, be careful in their language and edit their jokes so as not to offend people. I mean, I'll share with you guys later once I find the name of the episode and maybe show you a link of. It's good stuff. It's got a joke where with the nun with her head being shot off with a shotgun, and instead of blood, rainbows come out. So it's great. It's good fun.
So back to, I posted this before, like, how does South Park get a pass? Because they are just so incorrect purposely all the time.
Oh yeah, and I think they've gotten death threats for that. So
they get their ratings. That's why. I mean, Comedy Central is like, well, Jesus Christ, these ratings are so huge, we can't possibly try and edit these guys and run them off. Right. They're making us a lot of money.
But even the general society, people that would not like that, I mean,
because there has to be
an outlet.
There has to be an outlet, right? And that's South Park. And way back when, in the 90s, I mean, it was In Living Color.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's always been those comments.
I mean, I don't know that they get a pass. I mean, there are plenty of people who oppose South Park and think it should be banned. It's just that South Park is sort of an equal opportunity sort of bigotry show.
Exactly.
So I mean, they make fun of everyone, so it's a lot harder to criticize them for being partisan.
They can't put it down.
And I hate too much political correctness.
But you're always going to have people that are going to want to ban something. All in the Family. Well, people wanted to take All in the Family off the air in 1971.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to just pontificate is on Adam's point that when you try to ban words, when you're trying to censor words, you give them power. I could not agree more with that, because, and this is an example for me personally, that faggot is not a word that I used to use. Like, I don't like the word faggot. It sounds soft. Fag. It doesn't work as an insult, right? I don't think aesthetically, right? I don't like it. But I remember the day I decided to start using it. It was when I saw this video on YouTube. What's
Milo?
his name? No. The dude from 21 Jump Street, not the cool one, the fat one.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
Oh, Jonah
Hill. Right,
yeah,
that guy.
Okay.
He
Who?
He was being some guy. You're like ancient. You doesn't matter. Basically, he was being he was being harassed by this reporter, and he kept following him down the street. And at some point, he turned around and said, "Suck my dick, you beep." And then I didn't hear what he said, but I just assumed he said "fucker."
Uh-huh.
And then he went on Ellen to apologize, and I'm like, that sounds extreme, but I mean, okay, if you want to have this sort of reputation of like the gold, okay, whatever. And then I watched the episode, and I realized that he wasn't apologizing for being vulgar. No, he was apologizing for using the word faggot, because just using the word faggot out of context to some guy meant you just insulted the entire LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to our LGBTQ friends and brothers and sisters against us. And that's like, yeah, okay, this is bullshit. And basically, like, whenever you tell people they can't do something, they get the desire to do it. So, yeah.
Right. I mean, do you really think that black people would be calling each other by the N-word if the N-word wasn't suppressed?
Right.
Do you really think they'd be doing that?
I doubt it.
Everybody could say it, like they used to say it in the 70s, in Blazing Saddles, there'd be no way that they would be calling. Now, with gay people, don't they call each other girlfriend?
Gay people actually gay men sometimes call each other faggot. Honestly.
Right. Do you really think that would happen if the word fag or faggot was suppressed? And by the way, the first time I heard the word faggot, I didn't even know what the heck it meant. And so
you know what it used to mean way back, like a burning bull,
right?
A burning emperor.
Because then they used to burn homosexuals. Is that where it came from?
I don't even know.
Like,
I don't even know.
No,
the history of it is that when in the witch burning days, they also used to burn the sodomites, but the sodomites were not seen as people, so they weren't worthy of their own sort of
name
burning state. Imagine the honor, right? So they would be thrown down with the faggots. Essentially.
Okay.
You're a bundle of sticks. It's thrown with a bundle of sticks. And then I think.
But can't we all relate to using a new word that we've heard without knowing what the heck it meant?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I used the word. I said tranny in the group, and I got chastised, and I honestly did not realize that was derogatory.
Yeah, you have to
I just didn't want to write out transvestite.
Yeah, and you can't use that word either.
You thought it was short for transmission.
Yeah, and you can't use that word either. You have to use either transgender or transgender.
No, transvestite is okay.
That's out too. I didn't even know that.
It is okay.
So I walk
Only
around
within the
politically
community.
incorrect, but you can get in trouble,
Only
and
for
you don't even
cross-dressing.
understand how these parameters have been set around you.
Oh, I totally understand Adam's point. I sometimes use big words and I don't understand myself to make myself sound more photosynthesis, so yeah.
Don't
pontificate.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's gotten to the point where almost anything can be interpreted to be offensive to somebody.
So ridiculous.
I mean, I can understand the use of some words not wanting to use them because they were used in a really negative way. And people still tend to use them in a very negative way. But other words, it's like, okay, I don't understand why we're taking offense to these words. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense. There's not that big of a negative connotation. Like
Mexican
you said,
is a
tranny.
good
Like tranny, I don't know where that would be.
I don't know why that's so bad.
But it can be, though. I don't know.
Mexican's a better example because Mexican is considered to be a racist slur now. Well, what if you're from Mexico?
We're Mexican?
No, I am Latino or Latina if you're female.
Oh my gosh! Thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but aren't you from Mexico? Well, that's racist. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have my friend has a Latino Mexican husband, and he has like long hair and he wears it in a braid. And they came over one time and he had just taken a shower or something, so his whole back was wet, and you know what's coming. And I said, Renato, your braid's still wet. And he said, well, of course I'm a wetback. What would you expect? I mean, he calls himself that, and we all laughed, because he's not like, he's just a normal person.
Right.
He knows I'm his friend. I mean, so, and I could have called him that, and he would have just laughed. So it does depend on the person.
Well, yeah,
too.
you know, if he got yelled at by some big bulking man in the street, hey, you fucking wetback, I'm sure it would
then
not
it might be different.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
would be different.
I mean,
so.
he's married to a Caucasian woman, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean. They have lived.
Yeah.
He grew up here in Central Illinois, so he's not from Mexico.
Right.
So it's a different situation.
Yeah, that's my
But
godfather too. My
he
godfather
mocked
was
that whole, you know. So anyway,
Yeah.
But Betsy, you bring up a good point, and that is, if you want to destroy an offensive word, when
Normalize
the
it.
person who is right, normalize it or learn to laugh it off, learn to diffuse it,
Yeah,
and then
that's a good
it
point.
won't have the power anymore. And
Right.
once it doesn't have the power, nobody
No.
wants to use
Right.
it because it doesn't work.
right.
That's a good
I mean,
point.
it's like when when my brother was picking on me, and my mom would say, if you don't react, he won't do it. And instead of like screaming, "Ah," you know, that's what they want. So if you just
Right,
react
it's something we
to
tell children. Ignore the
Yeah,
bullies, right? With the
exactly.
sticks and stones. But I mean,
Exactly.
when did that stop being relevant? Like,
because it actually is accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, it
do want to kind of close out the topic to move on, but I
Okay.
just want to add one more point, and that is, it seems, by and large, the people that get most offended by the language are white people.
exactly.
And I mean, we can maybe discuss virtue signaling here a little bit later, but I mean that's the whole reason behind it is the white people worried about being seen as bigots because white people unfortunately have a history of bigotry to an extent. So, well, I don't want to be. I'm a good white person.
I'm a different.
I'm a good
Yeah.
white person, so I'm going to be the most vocally opposed and most angry
Right.
about this language. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the next point in the video.
I just want to say that's a good point, Jeremy. That the whites are the ones that take offense.
Most of the time,
I mean,
yes.
it's
Yeah,
basically
they
just-
don't want to be seen as being the asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And whenever I ask for a definition, if somebody says that's not politically correct, I ask for a definition of the word. They say, well, political correctness is just being polite.
Uh-huh. Okay, well...
the difference between... Okay, never mind. Just go on.
Oh, okay. All right, so here we'll go to 13 minutes now.
Perfect rear view mirror vision,
Right.
if you will. They can look in the back and say, see, we were that. And we were the real one, but you changed it, you Christians, you Jews.
Yeah. So one of the things I find when I discuss religion, and I am not a religious person, but I find that these ideas become political, which is why I end up discussing it a lot, because I do like talking about politics, is that a lot of my friends who I would consider more apologists for religion in general, but specifically for Islam, well, they'll say you're just focusing on Islam, or they'll say, but they're all nonsense, or they're all equally bad. Except that's not quite true, right? Because these books are derived from different things. So can you just sort of lay out some of the differences in the books specifically that lead to actions?
Well, let me explain
And
something
this
about...
is what I wanted to comment on.
Sure.
Like, and this doesn't necessarily have to relate to Islam, but this is a point that Sam Harris made, that this sort of idea and it sort of ties into what I was saying, right, that atheists tend towards Marxism, that people... I mean, there are some people, right, who will tell you that criticism of religion is always immoral and unethical and whatnot. Obama said that no one should be discriminated or criticized because of their race or religion. Okay, yeah, I get the race part, but the religion, the freedom to criticize religion is to criticize beliefs and ideas, even if they are sincerely held beliefs, is one of the fundamental freedoms of this free society. But even amongst those who will tolerate and even encourage criticism of religion, you will have a significant subset of people who will say that, yeah, criticizing religion is okay, but, focusing on one religion is racist, even though religions are not racist.
Mm-hmm.
But the point that Sam Harris made is that though any and all religions are fundamentally irrational because they are based on faith-based belief,
Uh-huh.
given the specifics of one given doctrine, it can be found to be more or less pernicious than another. I mean, you take Jainism, for example,
Okay.
and their sort of central doctrine is the spreading of one's faith through the expression of extreme nonviolence.
Right.
And a similarly central central tenet of Islam is spreading one's belief through violence. So acting like those two are somehow the same or equivalent is specious, to say the least.
For sure. And another thing about, I think they went on to discuss it further if we listen to it for another minute or two. The point that they were talking about at that 13-minute mark was kind of the revisionist history of Islam or in Islamic apologists. Basically, they were speaking to the point of the people of the book and the claim. Let me take a look here. So what Bill Warner was kind of talking about is how according to him in the Quran, or it might have even been another Islamic text, talking about how Abraham, Allah spoke to Abraham and misinterpreted the words of Allah. Allah spoke to Jesus and Jesus misinterpreted. So, I thought that was interesting how in Islam they're doing revisionist history, and what's really, I guess, ironic about it is it's revisionist. Is it revisionist history? Because
well, all religions do revisionist history if they do history at all.
Okay, but so that's what I'm talking about. Okay, where's the history to revise though? We still can't prove. There's not really any good evidence to prove that there was a person named Jesus Christ or from Nazareth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's almost like that could be then revising the myth of Jesus.
So is it
trying to fit in
revisionist mythology maybe instead of revisionist history?
And it's also important to note that Jews will often use the phrase "people of the book."
Okay.
So that's not just akin to Islam. I heard it all my life.
I see.
And but as far as not criticizing religion, religion has had its way for over 1,500 years. It's been the most protected group, probably in history.
Right.
And now the expiration date on the free pass that religion has had is approaching.
right.
And nobody turns it the other way. Nobody says, well, religion has been critical of other religions and people who don't accept religion for over 1,500 years. They've been more than critical. They've been murderous.
Yes.
But nobody ever says that. You never hear the intolerance of religion. You only hear about those people who are intolerant of religion.
Right.
Oh, you do. It's just that I would say, as I argued last time, it's just that people who, like most atheists, right, young atheists, they're not atheists because of principle. They're not atheists because of reason and evidence. They're atheists because of a sense of youthful rebellion.
Well, you're hearing it now, but you didn't. A lot has changed since 9/11.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
You're hearing it now.
The point I was trying to make is that, like, they'll be ready to criticize Christians because, like, this is a real thing on the Young Turks, right? Like, the sort of moral relativism of those people is something that gives me a headache. I don't remember the name of the guy, but not Schenk.
Okay.
The other pretentious asshole. Like, he was Rudy Giuliani said something about this sort of barbaric behavior is not happening in our culture, or something like that. And this dude, right, and this happened, right? This is a real thing. This dude basically said that the West isn't any better, Western culture isn't any better than Islamic culture because, and he literally equated that one business not wanting to cater to a gay wedding to Islamic cultures executing gays, right? We are just the same. We are all just as homophobic. So it's all this. Like the level of mental gymnastics it takes someone to say something like that and take themselves seriously is something staggering. But the point is that these people will be ready to criticize Christianity and whatnot, but they won't criticize Islam because it's sort of this sort of protected group, not because it's a religion, but because in this sort of Marxist victimhood Olympics spectrum, it's sort of lower than white people.
Right.
So
I think though that I do want to use that as kind of a way to continue arguing from my original point is in the change of tone in political correctness. After 9/11, being sensitive towards being sensitive towards the feelings of Muslims has become a lot more important, because after 9/11 there were a lot of violence and there's acts of violence, but there's a great number of threats and a lot of just nasty things said about Muslims. Muslims were genuinely afraid after 9/11 of facing retaliation because of the whole of jingoism and nationalism and the reaction to the attacks. So that, I mean, prior to that, I don't think there was a whole lot in the realm of political correctness to do with Islam. There wasn't, it wasn't really a priority before that.
Right.
Islam really wasn't an issue in the United States, as far as
it wasn't.
I know, until the Iranian hostages got taken in 1979.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Before then, I mean, you heard about the occasional hijacker that might have had ties to an Arab state. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1979, it all changed.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, before even that, I mean, the fact of the matter is Muslims have lived in the United States since the inception of this country, but their population has always been so small that no one really had anything to say or think about them. So.
Yeah, and of course after 9/11, and then all of a sudden we started seeing lots of
The focus shifted.
Definitely,
too.
like, that's when all people started finding videos of things like, oh yeah, and wherever it is, like I think maybe it's Iran or Syria or Saudi Arabia. I can't remember which one it is. And but they were like, oh yeah, they every Friday they have an anti-American protest in the streets and stuff. And none of us had ever heard that before, and I still have never,
Yeah, I mean, they weren't a protected class because nobody really gave a shit about them.
Yeah, right.
We just happen to be living in a time where Islam is the evil religion du jour.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
And it, hopefully, very soon, it will diminish. All religion will diminish. I hope so. It'll take another generation or two before things really change.
Soon.
No, it's not going to happen overnight. But turn back the
Long
clock.
dead, Adam. You and I will be long dead, considering how old we are.
Well, but then again, there's cryonics, so...
1 or 2 generations is a bit too optimistic, I'd say.
It's still on the rise. And
but look what's happened in the past 15 years. I mean, this is so... The rational environment that we live in now, vis-a-vis religion, is so different than it was just 20 years ago.
Definitely.
Yes, but it's not a reasoned approach to atheism, and it's not a balanced approach to fighting religion. It's sort of this out for blood approach. I don't care why you believe. I don't care what you replace your belief with. Just stop believing in God, you motherfucker, or I will kill you. Okay, not literally, but sort of that. So when you have this sort of guns blazing approach, eventually the pendulum will swing back. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, atheism is winning, but if we continue on this path of what's the fucking word I'm looking for? God damn, it's not out for blood.
You're so funny.
But how do you explain?
There is definitely a rise in anti-theism.
The church is being destroyed from the inside. How do you explain that? People are leaving the church. They're not out for blood. They've just had it. They're fed up. Yeah, the Christian church, and even, Jews are leaving their faith. That's been happening. I'm talking about the United States. Although Europe, as we talked about last week, is way ahead of the United States in terms of, with the exception of Islam, in terms of being rational.
Right.
dismissing religion.
Supernatural beliefs.
I think as far as Islam, I think actually to say something controversial, I think ISIS is doing us atheists a great service because that kind of doctrinaire fundamentalist brand of Islam, which ISIS represents, is probably falling out of favor as ISIS kills more and more people and captures more and more territory.
But it's not real Islam.
So I mean, hopefully what that would lead to would be probably reformed Islam, like Islam is.
No, I agree. I agree with Jeremy. Anything that points out the problems with religion, the evils of religion, is probably a good thing. I wasn't around then, but there are people who went through World War II, and they lost their faith afterwards because just like 9/11, they saw religion as a main cause of World War II. That there or they saw a complacent God who didn't do anything. So they figured, well, if God could go through World War II and not do a damn thing about it,
right?
How could there be a God?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I still think that you're conflating atheism with rationalism, which isn't always the case. And you already see people like Ivan Tranholm push back against atheism and say that, the reason why Europe is being ravaged by the migrant crisis, the reason Europeans are letting it happen is because we have lost our faith, we have lost our culture, so we need to go back to Christianity, we need to go back to having the sort of Christian identity. Not to say that I agree with this, it's just that I'm saying
I get your point.
There is this pushback, and the more atheists sort of try to push their advantage and go too far, honestly, the stronger this pushback will be.
Yeah, the pious do that in America too. They say, if only Jesus was brought back into the public schools, our test scores would go up.
I just heard that the other day at work.
There'd be no more school shootings if kids prayed in school.
Right.
Exactly.
Everything bad that happens is because we've eliminated Christianity.
Like you'll essentially have a generation of rebellious kids that will be Christian, just rebel against their atheist parents. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's where you will eventually arrive.
So then it would just be full circle. I mean, then it would be like the kids rebelling against their religious upbringing will come full circle and go the opposite. I mean, because our generation, or earlier, my parents didn't take us to church, but in the 40s and 50s, most families went to church, and then the kids of the 60s rebelled against a lot of that.
Did you have a lot of flat earther kids rebel against their rational round earth parents? I don't know.
What were you going to add, Heather? Okay.
Oh, no, nothing.
Okay.
I mean, I would suggest that the flat earther thing is a false equivalency because the flat earth never had sort of a political aspect to it.
That's true.
And I hear a lot of atheists that argue that atheism is apolitical, and okay, in theory, yes, but on paper, it's not. Like, one cannot deny the fact that atheists, by and large, overwhelmingly have a very specific political leaning. Yeah, sure, there are right-wing atheists. I am an example. We are all examples, right? But
the majority, we've all seen.
Yeah,
that.
I just got into this discussion. But don't you think that something is going to replace religion? That people aren't going to go backwards? They're not going to regress? Something's going to replace it.
Which will be government.
Of course they do.
Seems to be.
I mean, look, like, okay, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. I am not saying that religion is necessary and that it will always be a thing, right? Like, I'm an anarchist atheist. If I did not believe that an atheist anarchist society would be possible, I would not be what I am, right? So I absolutely believe that it is possible to remove people's need for religion and remove people's need for government. I'm just saying that our current approach is not great. So
Okay.
there might
How
be
would you?
some
What would you do?
Well, what is our current approach? How do you see our current approach?
chastising people for believing, and sort of
Tell
Like
them
not-
how wrong and
like not recognizing the merits. Here's something that Ben Shapiro said, and this sort of argument blew my mind. Because Adam, you guys said something last time about separation of church and state, and that the church isn't really separated from the state when people vote on their faith. Like, Shapiro's argument was that he tries to find secular justifications to religious doctrines. So I mean, he guides himself by the word of God, but since it's the word of God, it must be right. So if it's right, it must have because God said it is not an argument, right? So it must have a secular explanation, a secular justification, and I think that for a lot of things that's true. And a lot of the things that religion says has been dismissed. If Christianity tells you, don't be promiscuous, don't have sex before marriage, don't do that. Yeah, okay, they're ridiculous to an extent, right? And following them is a ridiculous thing to do, following them religiously, no pun intended. But that is not to say that they're completely empty and meaningless.
I agree with that. They always point to the golden rule as one of the best things to come out of the Bible, although it originally went back to Confucius. And no, I agree. I agree that the Bible has plenty of good things in it, but there's also plenty of bad. But I think the point is you can rationalize not having premarital sex for a number of logical reasons without bringing the supernatural into it.
right.
Yeah, but the thing that atheists do is they throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And an example of this was I don't know if you saw it, but a thread where Heather posted something about slut shaming or something like that, and I said that okay, yes, but promiscuous behavior is not really great. It has some consequences. So this sort of you might want to chastise people who advocate against promiscuous behavior. You might want to chastise them as like religious conservative prude nuts or whatever. But that's not really true. Because I mean, there is an argument, a secular argument to be made against promiscuous behavior. So the point is that, right, unlike Islam, right, that Christianity was created as a sort of individualist religion, that they gave you guidelines for individual behavior. And those guidelines were given for a reason, not just because some guy called Jesus one time decided to make some shit up to have a power trip to control people.
Well, I mean, okay, so yeah, you can argue that promiscuity is bad because you want to prevent the spread of sexually transmitted infections.
Not just.
There are many reasons you can come up with, very logical reasons, without having to rely on the mystical.
Right.
And it's that way throughout religion. But if you take the mystical out of religion, what are you left with? Basically, philosophy.
Exactly.
So is that what religion is going to morph into?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a good
right?
point.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm trying to do. But the thing, what I'm seeing is that a lot of atheists don't share this goal.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
want
They
to
just
tear
have-
down religion and replace it with fuck all.
Yeah.
Which is
That's because a lot of
Yeah.
atheists are kind of having a chicken and egg problem with philosophy and religion. Some of them say, well, religion, or some of them maybe even think that, well, religion just leads to, or philosophy just leads to religion, so that it's all invalid.
You have a lot of irrational atheists too. I
Sure.
mean, just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're rational. It means that you may not believe in religious hokum, but
you still buy into
right,
all kinds of
right.
others. Like we've seen that many times where people don't apply skepticism to medical stuff. They don't apply it to economics. You know, there's all you have to apply your skepticism if you want to call yourself a skeptic across the board.
Yeah.
And atheists can have, a lot of them just have a narrow view, like religion sucks and it can't be true. But then they jump into some new age alternative medicine thing that's bullshit, and they fight to tooth and nail why logic doesn't really apply to that. You know, they don't apply it.
Or as Alex talked about last week, they're irrational when it comes to politics. So
Exactly.
they replace God with the state.
Yep.
I was kind
And that's
of
just-
I was kind of more referring to because I know someone that, and it's a good example of it, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of a hokey term. It's scientism, which is actually often used by a lot of fundamentalist Christians like Ray Comfort and those.
I don't think scientism is a thing.
Well, I mean,
What is
I don't. It probably isn't really a thing. I just can't think of a better word to describe what I'm getting at. But I've seen it, an argument used by atheists before is like, well, religion and philosophy both are irrelevant because science can be used to explain everything, including, I mean, you can use, I mean, any problems, including political problems, moral problems, can be solved through
Yeah,
science.
but that's not how scientism is defined. Like when people complain about scientism, what they mean is that you have these idiots that as soon as you mention, like, scientists have discovered that. As soon as you say that scientists have discovered something, people will believe it. Like that they will believe anything that has the word science in it. But scientism is defined as the belief that the scientific method is the be-all, end-all of proving whether or not things are real.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at, though. I mean, in a way.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, because I've seen more than it's fairly common among progressive atheists that I see is the idea that yes, science has the answer for everything, and I mean not only is religion irrelevant but so is philosophy. So there's no point in philosophizing when you can use the scientific method to solve any given problem. And I mean I don't a lot of moral and ethical issues I don't think there's a scientific, approach that you can use to solve those problems. It's basically just the dismissal of philosophy doesn't. I mean, I suppose maybe it's powerful. I mean, not powerful, but possible at some point in the distant future. Once if we ever reach that technological singularity that Ray Kurzweil talks about. But I mean, I don't know. I doubt that philosophy would ever become to the point of where it's completely useless, and then
Two points I have about that. That first of all, I don't know a lot of atheists that are opposed to philosophy. They just don't care. They're ignorant, right? That all they want to do is remove religion. They don't actually think it through. That's my criticism of them. And not that they oppose philosophy. And second, like, I believe that the scientific method is the be-all, end-all of uncovering the truth. But that does not mean that I dismiss philosophy. Like, to me, philosophy is the science of morality. So I don't know that philosophy and science are somehow distinct.
And I guess probably that's what the error in what the type of people I'm talking about is. They see that philosophy has no relevancy as a science, basically. Which
like Sam Harris, who says that science can answer almost every moral question.
But then he goes on to
Harris
write
is
a
a
book
philosopher.
about. I was just going to say he goes on to write a whole book about philosophy and
He's got his PhD
spiritualism
in
and
neuroscience.
stuff. Right. I mean, I guess this when you say science, that's a pretty broad word. I mean, philosophy comes from the brain, so I suppose if you study brain function and evolution, you could come up with why people come up with philosophical.
The scientific method comes from philosophy. That's what a lot of people forget is.
Okay, right.
I mean, the scientific method wouldn't exist without philosophy. That's who created it, was the philosophers of ancient Greece for the most part.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think they're separate. You can completely separate them. Like,
I don't think you can either.
yeah, I don't think so. You can't just throw that out along with Christianity and Islam. I think it's different.
But yeah, you have a point, right? That a lot of atheists do throw it out,
Sure.
the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
So yeah, I believe that scholars and scientists refer to them as retards.
And
Okay.
Cartman would too.
All right. I'm gonna get to
Let's go back
Adam's.
to-
I'm gonna get to Adam's timestamp at 1810, and we'll play that here since we got long-winded here.
You're very friendly. So Muslims can be friendly, but not truly a friend. Do you see how I'm tying this to deception?
You got it right there.
Sure. And what was the point you wanted to bring up on that, Adam?
So, disingenuous humans exist everywhere, regardless of their adherence to religious faith or lack thereof.
Mm.
So that's it. Just that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure whether Dr. Warner would disagree with that. I know he's. I know the focus of this podcast was on Islam, but I think if you were to question him, he'd probably just say, "Yes, you're right."
Okay.
Yeah, but his point was that, like, again, right, as I made the point about how Islam is different from other religions in the sense that any religion can be a theocracy, but Islam was designed as a theocracy. Like, sure, any one can be disingenuous, but the doctrine of Islam specifically instructs you to be disingenuous.
Right. In
So
that whole section, he was talking about deception and how they were advised to deceive the caliphate people so they can appear to be your friend by being friendly, but they are not, because their book orders them basically to be separate, and their entire political goal is to get rid of us, the caliphate.
Well,
yeah, so it's not like just some random sort of social leaning that people have. It's something
he was pointing out the duality
prescribed in the book.
Yeah.
Just from a personal point of view, I've known Muslims, worked with them. I didn't see any of this radical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It certainly does, but I just didn't see it in the few, and there've been just a few that I've known in my life.
And in this video, Bill Warner argues that those people don't really understand Islam.
That's right.
I don't know.
Because
I mean,
the duality.
They're Muslims like my parents are Christian, right? I mean, sure, okay, they might say that they're Christian on paper, but they don't really believe, that, sodomites should be burned alive or whatever, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, and again, this is the point I made last time, that the Muslims you guys see in America, that they're a really, really filtered minority.
Mm-hmm. Compared to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like they're westernized Muslims. Or Muslims on paper, but not much else.
Okay.
So I wouldn't really take them as the gold standard for Islam.
He explained.
And that's why I'm always careful to say all I know is what I've seen in the U.S.
Right.
I'm ignorant of what happens in Europe. I'm the first to admit.
All right, so
Fucking Americans.
I know we're terrible. So at 1953, then we'll get to Adam's next point here.
Trees. That is, Islam uses a calendar while we're using a watch.
Okay,
Now this is
that was it. And we really covered this, that we happen to be living in an era where Islam is the top religion of evil, and turn back the clock, it could be Christianity or Judaism or whatever. So unless somebody has a point they want to add, I mean, that's
I had a point
really it for me.
that I marked at 20, just in general, because he goes on, and I mean, I kind of, I guess I don't want to say that it sounded conspiratorial what he was getting into if he let it play for a few more seconds, but he basically was saying that Islam took such a long view, as if this has all been planned out, and they have,
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. He talked about Turkey used to be, 93% Christian and what was it, Greek Orthodox or something? I don't know. And now, over like 100 years, now they're 98% Muslim. So his point was there's just a gradual creeping of the Islam political movement.
He mentioned how
that will take over countries. And so that's why it sounds alarmist. And even Ruben brought up, this sounds conspiratorial. He brought that up.
Yeah.
A little bit. But,
but it's, except that it's true. Like,
yeah, I was just going to say, it's happening. And it is happening in Europe.
Immigration is in Islamic doctrine, immigration is a weapon to be used against an enemy. And this is something I was going to bring up to what Adam said, that, they use a calendar, but god damn it, are they bad at using it. I mean, like, all they have to do to destroy Europe, all they had to do, right, was just come in and be nice for like a generation or two.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, they have an average of 3.5 kids per couple. We have an average of 1.1 to 1.2. Like, and you need 2.2 for a replacement, right?
Right.
So just wait it out. Chill.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Just wait it out, like 1 or 2 generations, and by 2000,
they would be the majority.
By 2100,
yeah,
you would be the majority. But no, they have to do and fucking blow up shit and stuff like that, and increase xenophobia, which sort of
alerts everybody.
Yeah,
brings it to the forefront. So then everybody's like, "What's happening here?" And then we're talking about it today because of that.
Well, and I mean, I guess what was conspiratorial, kind of tinfoil hat-ish sounding to me was how he talked about how in American textbooks, how Sharia law is mentioned. It's like, well, they're not teaching kids to obey Sharia law. They're teaching kids what Sharia law is. And I don't see how there's anything nefarious about teaching kids, facts about other cultures, really.
I guess you'd have to look
certain
at
private schools that.
You'd have to look. It was in Tennessee, and I guess you'd have to look at the way it was presented to know whether it was a spin on it or. I mean, you want it to just be neutral, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read about this one private school, K9 or something, where they essentially all they did was basically preach to the white kids about how evil they are and how like inherently sinful they are and shit like that. And they would like at lunchtime they would segregate the kids, and like all the white kids would get like a simple sort of lunch or something like that, and whilst they were eating they would be told about how evil they are and all that shit, and all of the colored kids would be sorry, people of color, whatever the fuck, and they would be taken to like a different area where they would be given sweets and cookies and all that shit, and like be encouraged to talk about their problems. And like a funny observation by one of the staff members was that when the kids were brought back together, the non-white kids, right, they were still munching on their sweets and shit, and like she was worried this might cause resentment. Really? You think? But I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that like shit like this happens, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if some school in America teaches, Sharia law.
I guess, it's just, I mean,
I'll try to find that textbook somehow, see if we can read what he's talking about. Because that'd be interesting to exactly see if because he's immersed, he said his whole life is focused on this. So you kind of, whenever you get honed in on any one subject, then you start seeing, your mind kind of can get overboard on parts of it. I don't know what you mean.
I'm exaggerating here, but, Alex Jones claims that his entire life is focused on studying the Freemasons, and we all know what he thinks. So, I mean,
The amount of times Alex Jones was right really makes me nervous. Like, I mean, he's been talking shit about the occult and Satanism and politics and whatever, and I'm like, always, come on, dude. like really seriously, and now Hillary Clinton was in that fucking spirit cooking shit. Like, what the fuck else is he wrong about? Should I start taking male vitality? Should I give my kids fucking childies? Are they really turning the fucking frogs gay? I mean, what is real anymore?
But the ultimate conspiracy in human history, Alex Jones won't go near.
What is that?
Which is?
Religion.
Oh, of course. That is true. Well, in his eyes, the atheists are the real puppet masters pulling the strings.
Of course.
Right.
Of course, because he doesn't acknowledge the biggest conspiracy ever.
Right. You're right.
Okay, so
He can't do it because if he did, he'd lose more than half his listening audience.
it's true.
Well, knowing Alex Jones, who knows? Maybe he met God. Maybe he knows something we don't.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a scoop. Okay, so I'm gonna play.
Yeah, well, Alex Jones is proof that God has a sense of humor.
For sure.
But I just want to get back. Go ahead. But I just want to get back to Jeremy. You were talking about how this sounded like a conspiracy theory, and yeah, that was one of the portions in the podcast where it gave me an impression that Dr. Warner had some type of ulterior motive.
I see. Yeah, I can see that for sure. That's probably a good example of that. Now, I'm gonna get to your last timestamp, Adam, here at the probably about around the 22.5 minute mark. You said 22:28, so
Right.
I'll start playing where I got it. So
Gave the Muslims in jihad the right to rape Kafir women.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives them the right to take part in polygamy, to have wife beating, which is a right within Islam. So it's their right in the sense of Islam gives women their rights, but it does not go ahead and tell you what all those rights include.
Yeah, interestingly, I saw a video, I'm 99% sure it was an Al Jazeera video, it was in English, and it was a young woman, a young Muslim woman, describing how Islam really led to modern-day feminism. Needless to say, the comments on the video were...
that was probably about the gist of what you had there, Adam.
So the line was, I wish that every school would teach the Quran in its entirety.
Uh-huh.
So I immediately thought, okay, that's great. Teach the Quran in its entirety. Now, are you also in favor of teaching the Old and New Testaments in their entirety? Because if you were to do that, you could create a lot of atheists that way.
Right.
Certainly. And, I mean, the Bhagavad Gita would be another good one, along with, the Torah and...
Yeah, teach the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As they say, there's no better way to create an atheist than have them really read the Bible.
Right.
That, that definitely helped me to solidify my ideas. Because, as Alex has mentioned, that I probably started being an atheist out of rebellion. But then as I kind of started exploring it and analyzing and, the Bible from a critical perspective, then that, that basically, sealed the deal for me.
Were you raised in a Christian home or a religious home, Jeremy?
My mom was, a pretty devout Catholic, so it was very important for.
Oh, that's right.
For her, that I would become Catholic myself.
Uh-huh.
My dad, I wonder about my dad's feelings on religion, because he would never go to church with us. My mom was always dragging me to church every Sunday, and he would never go to church. And like, in adulthood, I asked him. I finally asked him. He's like, well, growing up, you'd never go to church with us. So, what's your? Do you believe in God? What's your view on religion? And he says, well, I think a lot of it's bullshit, and the rest of it, I just don't know or care enough about. So, I'd say he's probably an agnostic, even though he didn't label himself as such. So I guess you could say I was in a half-religious household.
And so at what age did you pretty much start just rejecting it? Were you a teenager?
Yeah, I'd say about 14 or 15, which upset my mom a great deal.
Do you remember what your mom said to you when you told her that you weren't a believer anymore?
I
well,
have no son.
You are dead to me.
What actually? I mean, one thing. One of the first things she said, and she continues to say it, is, well, I mean, first of all, she said, "Well, you were baptized, so you're always going to be a Catholic." And then basically, the whole. She still thinks I'm going through a phase, you know, some 20-some years later. Yeah. So.
As long as you have a breath in your body, there's still hope that God can reach you, I guess.
Yeah.
Here's something interesting. So I know this Catholic guy who rejected his religion, never really believed. And one day it was time to tell his father, and who has since passed away. But it wasn't because his son rejected Catholicism. But it was not time to tell his father. The first words out of his father's mouth were, "What happened? Did somebody molest you?"
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was the first. Why did you give up? Why did you give up religion? Were you molested? I couldn't get over that. Now, imagine if. Why would that be? It's more fascinating, not the person who gave up the religion, not the son, but what was going through the father's mind, who retained his belief in Catholicism, that he would say something like that to his son. Even now that I think about it, it's beyond belief.
It is.
It's so twisted, isn't it?
It really is.
It does require a lot of double think, and I've confronted my mom about, the sex scandal for the Catholic priests, and she says, well, that has nothing to do with the teachings of the Bible and Jesus. Those are just some nasty, corrupt, powerful men. This is so like it happened independent of religion. It's the religion itself.
Now there's a conspiracy that's real.
That is.
As if it comes as a surprise to anyone that religion requires double think. I mean,
it certainly is. Yeah.
Or triple think. In the case of Catholicism, because there's
the Trinity,
three-person God.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the strongest arguments you can make, right? That, okay, so you believe in the Ten Commandments, you believe in all this good shit. What about this other shit? How do you make what's the standard you use? Common sense. Okay, so then you believe in common sense, not religion. But the problem with arguing against religion, and this is why I've largely given up on it, is because moving the goalposts with religion is not a fallacy. It's just standard practice.
It is.
I mean, you're not even moving the goalpost because there is no goalpost, right? You're arguing you can't argue against fiction. It's like trying to prove that Naruto isn't real. The fuck are you supposed to do that, right? I mean, when okay, but God said this and this and that. Oh, well, actually, no, he didn't say that. Well, okay, but this happened. Well, actually, no, that's not what. Well, okay, but actually, not. Actually, no, there's no arguing against that. So
and then they just fall back on, well, I feel that it's true. I feel him. I mean, my friend whose son died of a heroin overdose a year ago, who is continued. She hasn't asked me lately, but was trying to get me to come to Bible study with her, and I was just trying not to be a bitch, like with her son dying. But it's so disgusting how she just can't. I don't know, she feels that this was God's will, and it just makes me sick to hear her try to just spin the whole thing I don't know. It's just, you know what I'm talking about. I can't even put it into words how.
Uh-huh.
They've painted themselves in a corner because they
Yes,
can't admit that the
Maybe
book
it's
could
all
be wrong, and they
true.
can't change the book.
So they have to take.
So they have to do whatever they have to do to make sure God wins. But getting back to the Ten Commandments, only 30% of the Ten Commandments are based on reason.
Most
The
of
other
them are
70% are ridiculous.
Yeah.
They are. The very first one is worship me. I mean, that's
Right.
the God
I mean,
of love. You know, I'm the most important thing. The whole
Who cares
thing.
about graven images? I mean, what's that
Well-
going to do with anything?
Right, that's the funny part. It's like that's
Remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. What?
That's
Right.
Well, I don't
kill someone.
I don't know that it's not based on reason. Like whoever wrote that thing was quite smart, I'd say, because I mean the point is right to give the individual sort of rules for personal behavior, and also to tell them, okay, so this is what you have to do, and make sure you follow these rules and not someone else's.
Yeah.
So
The first part was how to lock them into that religion, and that's always religion's first goal, is to get people to feel that they cannot leave, you know?
How about coveting, a thought crime? You can be punished just for thinking something. That's a good one.
Yep.
Especially if it's your neighbor's ass.
So we've covered that video basically, the Bill Warner.
I just had one other thing.
Sure.
Throughout the entire podcast, part one, I really didn't listen to part two yet. Can anybody think of something that wasn't mentioned throughout the entire podcast about Islam?
It wasn't mentioned.
That wasn't mentioned at all. I didn't hear a word about it. I didn't hear. I mean, I'm not surprised that Dr. Warner didn't bring it up, but I am surprised that Dave Rubin didn't mention it at least once.
The burkini?
Nope.
I can think of a couple of things, but I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
There was no mention of U.S. interventionism, military interventionism in the Middle East.
Oh, okay. I mean, they
Not
might.
We
one.
might get into that in the second part. I've listened to the whole thing, but it's been a couple months. I think.
Okay, I will listen to this.
Yeah, he gets into a lot more stuff. This is really an introduction.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's listening to, whether we
that's-
discussed it at length or not. It's
that's a huge piece of the puzzle for sure.
right.
I did want to kind of, and I posted this video to the group yesterday. Just, I'm not sure if this is good for a laugh or make you want to get a stiff drink. It's one or the other. But it's the David Suzuki saying that economics is a form of brain damage.
I watched that. Oh my god.
So we can just watch this video real quick because it's only like a minute long.
Yeah, so Alex can hear it.
Hang on a second here.
What, should I sort of like sit down or something?
It's just ludicrous.
Well, I mean, the header on the video is the most ludicrous part. The claim that
I forgot what it
economics is a form of brain damage. That statement is ridiculous. But
The
anyway.
economists say if you clear cut the forest, take the money and put it in the bank, you can make 6 or 7%. If you clear cut the forest, put it into Malaysia or Papua New Guinea, you can make 30 or 40%. So who cares whether you keep the forest? Cut it down, put the money somewhere else. When those forests are gone, put it in fish. When the fish are gone, put it in computers. Money doesn't stand for anything, and money now grows faster than the real world. Conventional economics is a form of brain damage.
So there you go.
Economics.
I have no idea what he means or where he's going with it.
That's just so bizarre.
Oh wait, that wasn't the whole video. There's still like a whole 50 seconds.
Yeah, it was a couple minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like a minute and a half. Here, we'll go with the rest of it.
Is so fundamentally disconnected from the real world. It is destructive. If you take an introductory course in economics, the professor in the first lecture will show a slide of the economy. And it looks very impressive, you know, raw materials, extraction, process, manufacture, wholesale, retail, with arrows going back and forth. And they try to impress you because they think, they know damn well, economics is not a science, but they're trying to fool us into thinking that it's a real science. It's not. Economics is a set of values that they then try to use mathematical equations and all that stuff and pretend that it's a science. But if you ask the economist, in that equation, where do you put the ozone layer? Where do you put the deep underground aquifers of fossil water? Where do you put topsoil or biodiversity? Their answer is, oh, those are externalities. Well, then you might as well be on Mars. That economy is not based in anything like the real world. It's life, the web of life that filters water in the hydrologic cycle. It's microorganisms in the soil that create the soil that we can grow our food in. Nature performs all kinds of services. Insects fertilize all of the flowering plants. These services are vital to the health of the planet. Economists call these externalities. That's nuts.
My first question is, what economist is going to advise industry to completely destroy the environment?
Exactly.
You're going to completely destroy all of your resources for a short-term profit, for a short-term game? I don't know who would advise that. That's insane.
And he claims that economics or economists see economics as a science, but Rothbard and von Mises, they see it as a philosophy, do they not?
I mean, they apply it to philosophy. I don't know if they see economics itself as philosophy.
I think so. I think I read where Rothbard said that economics is a philosophy, it's not a science.
Well, I mean, it's not a physical science, but just like I would say that that philosophy is the science of morality, economics is the science of money. It's not based on, like, it's not math or physics or chemistry, but it's the science in its own right. But I mean, like, this dude, like, oh my god, okay, he's like sort of the classical critic of capitalism. I mean, you have to look no further than Noam fucking Chomsky, where he's like, a stateless capitalist society wouldn't work because the capitalists would take over. Dude, come on! Like, oh god.
But wait a minute, Chomsky's a libertarian. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's
Fuck out of here, man.
This is an inside joke. We had an upstart who joined the group as a troll, and he claimed that Chomsky was a libertarian.
Yep, I got in on that.
Well, yeah, he is a libertarian, right? But he's a left libertarian, which is synonymous with cancer. But the point is that this dude, like,
actually, a libertarian socialist is what he
That's what
owns
Chomsky
That's right.
identifies. Yep.
I mean, this guy essentially equates economics to greed.
Yeah.
And like throws out things like incentives. I mean, like, critics of capitalism, they sort of the only sort of incentive they consider and understand is the incentive to make more money. But, you know, the incentive to survive, the incentive to preserve the environment in order to survive, nah, those don't matter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny because, I mean, there's reasons to criticize capitalism that people never touch on. I mean, you know, I guess especially in terms of anarcho-capitalism, I don't see how that would work without a unbiased arbiter to settle, you know, claims of property rights. I guess, I mean, as far as, you know, anarcho-capitalism, I think that's a good criticism of it. I'm kind of at a loss as to other reasonable criticisms of capitalism, but yeah, you know, the socialists, leftists, Marxists, to them, capitalism is the same thing as greed, and well, it's not. It's just an economic system.
And just ask them to define the word greed, and see if they bite.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
see how many of them won't do it or can't do it.
I mean, this is a point that Friedman made, that what society doesn't run on greed. I mean, Soviet Russia used to run on greed. Capitalism is just a system that I mean, trying to remove greed is folly. Capitalism is simply a system that sort of legitimizes said greed and funnels it into to self-interest rather than some select group of people or one individual making decisions for others, led individuals make their own individual decisions, and that way, according to Adam Smith, that way society will get to a better result. I just wanted to make the point on the arbitration thing. Like, anarcho-capitalist theory essentially, I mean, there's no reason to believe that arbitration could not be provided privately. Right? I mean, when you make a bet with someone, you use a witness, right? Or that doesn't have to be a government. I mean, as long as it's a third party you both mutually agree on, and they have certain rules, and like you and I make a bet, and we go to Betsy and say, okay, Betsy, these are the terms of the bet, can you arbitrate this for us? And she says, okay, so as long as you respect these, this, and this, then that's the bet. And
they have to be honorable. That witness has to be honorable. That's about it.
Yeah, which will be sort of forced by the market, because if you're dishonorable, if you're an arbitration sort of company, right, and
your reputation becomes ruined, and then you have no business.
Yeah, you provide shitty service, then you get fuck all. Like, the only valid criticism of anarcho-capitalism I see is that, like, sort of letting the market dictate laws.
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially to say that you let the majority dictate laws.
And
that's not really such a good thing, because, I mean, majorities have been known to do some pretty fucked up shit.
Right.
Well, you end up with direct democracy, and that's actually the reason. That's the reason why most countries don't have a government that's ran on direct democracy. I mean, people in the United States are complaining about how we're not a direct democracy. Well, I can't think of a republic, rather, a country that's a republic that is a direct democracy. I mean, maybe there is one, but it's who it would be is escaping me. So.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is that, at least in my perspective, that to say that anarcho-capitalism is possible, and with how things currently are, is stupid. I mean, I would never make that claim that anarcho-capitalism would be possible tomorrow. Like, if anarchy, any kind of anarchy really, is ever to be possible, then it will require a significant moral and ethical evolution in the human mind. And I mean, people criticize this because, oh, well, you see, I'm skeptical of any system that requires an X type of human. Well, then that means you are skeptical of human survival. Like, this is not about anarcho-capitalism. If you don't believe that humans are capable of moral and ethical evolution, then that means you believe that the human race is doomed. Like, this, I don't think it takes a genius to realize that this isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
That the system we have now, you mean?
Yeah. No, not the system we have now, but rather the mindset that we have now, the mindset that people have now.
Right.
Because, I mean, the system is, I mean, this is something that a lot of people say, right? That politics is downstream of culture, which is why I support, I mean, big part of the reason why I supported Trump, that I don't really care about his authoritarian politics. I care about the sort of culture he inspires, the sort of rebellious, fuck you, don't tell me what to do culture. And
his ability to disrupt and cause disruption.
Yeah. An agent of chaos, essentially, which is what I am. As evidenced in the group. But the point is, right, that if you don't believe, like, I don't care what you are. You can be a communist, you can be a socialist, you can be a transhumanist, you can be a mutualist, you can be a capitalist, you can be whatever the fuck you are. As long as you are a human species survivalist, then you must believe that moral and ethical evolution is possible.
Well,
to believe that it is impossible is to believe that the human race is doomed.
Well, there's precedents. I mean, there's already been a precedent set for that. I mean, for moral and ethical evolution. I mean, just in the evolution of religion, actually, and governance for that matter. People had to evolve to the point of monotheism, which is the dominant form of religion. People had to evolve into representative government from, authoritarian, autocratic, aristocratic, whatever, government. So.
Yeah, and like a big part of the criticism I get when I say this sort of thing from anarcho-capitalists is that I'm not a real anarchist, right? Because I supported Trump or whatever, and also because I sort of take the baby steps approach and say that, yeah, I mean, we will have to take the baby steps approach. We will have to get people used to this sort of thing. Moral and ethical evolution, right? And the argument is that why do we have to do that? Why can't we just use the same approach with slavery? I mean, we didn't wait for people to we didn't baby step them into abolishing slavery. We just burned the fucker down. Yeah, except that we didn't. I mean, human civilization is 5,000 years old, and we only abolished slavery like yesterday. And to be fair, we still have slavery, right? In the Muslim world, like right now, as we're speaking, some Saudi Arabian sheikh is probably ordering his slave to fucking give him a back rub or something. So the point is that, I mean, what do you think that never in history do you think that there have never been slave revolts in history? Of course they have been. But the point is that humans were not ready to give up slavery yet, so it didn't work.
You know what was going to kill slavery? I mean, and honestly, you could have skipped the American Civil War, and slavery probably would have ended right around the same time, and that was the Industrial Revolution.
Yep, exactly.
That is why a lot of people on the libertarian side say that Lincoln, right, is one of the worst presidents in U.S. history, because, well, first of all, he is responsible for creating the Union, this massive federal government that you have that fucks shit up all over the world. Fuck you guys for that. But also, like, he is a war criminal, right? Because I mean, the slavery went away organically everywhere in the Western world. Only in America did close to 700,000 people have to die
in order to get rid of it.
Well, that's because he didn't want those states to splinter off into another competing country.
That's exactly right.
And that's what it really was about.
Have you read that book called Lincoln Unmasked by Thomas DiLorenzo? It's really good. It does exactly what the title says. It goes into
like DiLorenzo. He's great.
He's great. He also wrote How Capitalism Saved America or something like that. I've read a couple of his books. He's dug into so much of the Lincoln history, and it's so different. The myth, what we believe about him is not. He was a huge statist in Illinois, obviously where I live, and made some horrible decisions that cost the state billions of dollars.
Lincoln was also a white supremacist. Just want to throw that in there.
He was. Yeah. That book, I learned so much, and now when people want to honor him, I'm thinking, you don't even know who the real Lincoln was. And you can't say stuff you said about the Civil War and slavery without that being completely politically incorrect. Mm-hmm. But so accurate. Slavery. I need
to go on this tangent, right? You brought up political correctness, and you can't say that. Like, that is sort of. You guys said that political correctness started out as a good idea, and like whenever
I never said that.
No.
I think Jeremy said it or someone.
What I said is political correctness can change in tone over time, and it's not only a leftist phenomena, I guess is what I was saying.
No. Like one of you made the point that like all good ideas that started out too far, it was corrupted or something like that. Like the argument I make, and I make this argument about feminism as well, it was always a bad idea. The difference, the point about political correctness, like people say that political correctness is just being considerate. The difference between being politically correct and being considerate is that being being considerate would mean not telling a rape joke to a rape victim. Being politically correct means not telling a rape joke ever, in any circumstance, to anyone ever. Mm-hmm. So being considerate is
Yeah, good point.
basically decency
Yep.
and political correctness is censorship. But yeah, about the Lincoln thing, yeah, I just wanted to say that, I mean, Lincoln is on record saying that he didn't care about
That's
whether or
right.
not the blacks remained slave. I mean, I respect the soldiers of the Civil War because they really believed in that they were fighting to end slavery, but Lincoln didn't.
No.
I mean, as I understand it, essentially the issue was that the North was going bankrupt, so Lincoln needed the Southern tax base.
Yeah.
There's a lot of economics involved. I once spoke to a Lincoln groupie, and he was he actually gets dressed up as Lincoln and portrays him. And I brought up the fact that slavery would have probably died of its own
The natural
causes after the Industrial Revolution got underway, and he disagreed. And it was the wackiest thing I had ever heard. He said, no, what would have happened is they would have it would have taken until about the turn of the century, so about 1900. And the deason he said was because they were going to use slaves to mine gold. So wackiest thing I ever heard.
Wonder where he got that.
Don't know.
I've never heard that.
I mean, the gold rush started before the war. That was 1848 and 1849, right?
It did.
So how was it that they were going to use all these slaves to mine gold until about 1900? I don't get it.
Well, people are dumb, so.
That's for sure. I think we're getting close to where we can wrap up, right, Heather?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Since you're running the recording. So, okay, so we'll wrap it up, and then we'll come up with the topic here in the coming days for next week's discussion.
Sounds good.
All right.
Well, as I said, next week I probably won't be here because I'll be in Australia. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll definitely have internet access over there, so maybe I'll manage to use Saturday to do this, but not everyone, and definitely not the first Saturday.
Okay.
All right,
When are you leaving?
Monday.
Well, enjoy your trip.
Thank you. I hope I will. Like on the way, I'm stopping for a day in Dubai, and I was supposed to stay with some friends, but they it turns out that they can't be in town that day, so I'll be alone for an entire day in Dubai. That is, like, I know where I'm supposed to go, and like worst case scenario, I'll just call a fucking cab or something like that. But it's still intimidating as shit. Like, I don't know.
Can I give you some advice? Don't talk.
Yeah.
Be very quiet and humble, and keep your burqa on.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Dubai is actually like 70% non-Muslim.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it, so that's good.
All right.
Well, be careful.
I will try to be.
All right.
All right. Well, goodbye, everybody.